Folks, if you enjoy our guidance about the management trinity, getting to know your people, talking about performance, asking for more, pushing work down, and our tools are helpful, one-on-ones, feedback, coaching, and delegation. The ideal way to learn about implementing them is to come to one of our Effective Manager conferences. One day, we cover all of the major topics. You practice feedback, you practice coaching, you practice delegation. I can't tell you the number of times people have said to us, wow, I thought I understood the tools. And then when I had to practice, I realized I've taken it to another level. Come to the website, check out our conference schedule, see us all over the U.S. and in Europe and in Asia and in Australia. See you there.
Welcome to the Manager Tools Podcast for Monday, July 11th, 2005. Hi, this is Michael Ozan. Welcome back to Manager Tools. Today's discussion is a continuation of our conversation on the role of one-on-ones. Today we'll be answering a few of the more common questions folks have when trying to implement one-on-ones. Now, if you haven't listened to the previous show on one-on-ones, our suggestion is you go back and listen to the 2 previous shows. Simply go to www.manager-tools.com and you'll find the shows listed there. If you take the time to do so, you'll find the show to be more effective in helping you improve your management performance, which of course what this is all about. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Hey Mark, how you doing?
Good, Mike. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Hey, we got some great feedback on the last show, which you and I really appreciate. I tell you what, I was running around just totally jazzed. My wife was wondering if I had, I don't know, I don't do drugs, but she thought I might have gone over the deep end. It's pretty cool. But the one, Harold sent us just one example. Harold sent us a great bit of feedback. Harold said, well, Mark and Mike, I have to admit you've done a fantastic job of describing this process as well as providing tools for making it work. I must admit I've been down this road before with limited success for exactly the reasons you mentioned. Lack of routine, no agenda, and no systemic approach. Thanks for getting me back on the right track, and I'll let you know how the first sessions go with my team. Interestingly enough, there was plenty of time to get these scheduled the last week of July, 3 weeks from now, which is what we recommended.
Right.
And I've already got some booked. The sample letter you provided, tweaked for my team, seems to have worked just great. Cheers. So, Harold,
I love that.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the feedback.
I like all feedback, but I have a particular place in my heart for positive feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. We also got a couple other questions on one-on-one. So I think today we're gonna kind of stick with the one-on-one theme and kind of go over maybe a little bit more details on how to do them and what questions people typically have. So some of these are a result of questions that we've been sent via our feedback email, which is show@manager-tools.com.
Right.
And some of them are questions that I remember my folks had way back when I implemented this in my organization. So I think it's worthwhile spending a little time going over some of these questions. I think it'll help people be a little bit more comfortable and more effective with their one-on-ones.
Good.
I'm sure we have a few new users or listeners, I should say.
Right.
Can you give us just a real quick update on one-on-ones? And I think if people haven't listened to the previous podcast, then they absolutely ought to go back and listen to those. So we won't repeat it all here, but if you just give us a high level, just bring people up to speed.
I start with my official leadership consultant disclaimer, which is do not listen to the next 2 minutes and think that you're magically now officially qualified to do one-on-ones well. You need to go back and listen to the first 2 shows to really get a good sense of them. But at a high level, basically, one-on-ones are weekly meetings with your direct reports. They're scheduled in advance. They're rarely missed. They're a half hour long. Each agenda is the same. There's 10 minutes at the beginning for them to tell you what's going on with them. It could be their weekend. It could be their kids. It could be work. The middle 10 minutes is for you to talk about things that are important to you, to follow up on things, to share with them things that you've heard. And then lastly, 10 minutes to talk about the future, which often ends up going by the wayside, which is fine because they'll take 15 minutes perhaps and you'll take 15 minutes. A typical one-on-one cycle is a manager, let's say Thursday at 2 o'clock, Mike, I'm going to have a one-on-one with you. We're scheduled every Thursday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to have a one-on-one. It's on my calendar for weeks in advance. And of course that prohibits people from scheduling other things over it. And right before the meeting, maybe 5 minutes before the meeting, I review my one-on-one forms, simple pieces of paper. I've gotten a notebook there at my desk. We're going to do this at my desk. And I'm going to go through the last 3 or 4 weeks and look for stuff that we said we'd cover or that we need to go over that I haven't gone over. It might be a yellow sticky. It might be a note I've made, whatever. And I'm going to bring those notes forward into my one-on-one notes for this week. And again, those forms are on the website. The meeting is fairly simple. You're going to be there at 2 o'clock. We're going to do it at my cube. And you're going to start off with, hey, here's what I've got going on. I need your guidance on this. I need help on that, and so on. Want to tell you about something that's going on with my family. I'm thinking about vacation around Thanksgiving. What do you think about that? And I might say, let me let you know, and I'll circle that as a follow-up item that I have to work on coming out of the first week, coming out of our meeting. And then I've got 10 minutes to talk to you about something I heard in a meeting. This is not a waterfall meeting where I just tell you everything that's been going on at the higher levels, but I might follow up on a project or two that you're working on. I might give you some feedback, give you some guidance, and so on. And then after the meeting, I take a quick look at what we talked about and maybe transfer a couple of things to Outlook, send an email to somebody that I said I'd check with one of my peers about what the status is of a project we're working on. And regardless of how busy we are or how much stuff we have to cover, we do our best to finish in 30 minutes. And that agenda, that 10-10-10 agenda, really helps get there. And then very likely, I've got another one-on-one with another person right after. That's it in a nutshell. The purpose of the one-on-one is to spend time developing a close relationship, which relationships are always built on frequent communication. Build a close relationship with each of your direct reports. That's it.
Super.
Yeah.
Great. Now, okay, so some of the questions we've been asked over time.
Right.
First one, I did a one-on-one and it was extremely awkward. How long is it going to take to get used to them?
Well, first of all, that's not unusual. Okay, the first time you took a step, you didn't do very well. You stumbled, you fell. And you and I have talked about this before, Mike. There is such a culture of fear in corporations. I mean, I'm amazed how many people think when I get to executive director, that's when I I'll really know what's going on. And then you get to ED, and suddenly it's like, no. You have to be an assistant vice president to really know what's going on in the company. There's a fear of bosses and of always being right. And people say, well, you need to do this. I don't have time to tell you, but don't mess it up.
Right.
Look, you're going to do this. It is absolutely the single most powerful management tool I know of. And it's going to be a little bit awkward. Your people are going to be uncomfortable. In fact, I think we've got some questions about how your people will be uncomfortable. How long will it take to get used to? So first, yes, it's going to be awkward. If I didn't make that clear before, sorry. But if it's awkward, that's okay. You're fine. Your people will like it so much they will forgive you the awkwardness. I guarantee it. That's my experience over the last 15 years of teaching this. Now, how long will it take to get used to? The great thing is if you do all of them, let's say you have 10 direct reports and you do 10 in 1 week, by the second week you'll have done 10 and you'll be a lot better. So I sometimes tell people, choose your best 2 or 3 people to be the first ones, the ones who will be a little bit more forgiving of you. The ones who are going to be a little bit tougher, put them later in your first week schedule. But probably you're going to be more comfortable after 1 week, and you're going to be feeling very good about them after the second week, because you'll have done, assuming 10 people, you'll have done 20 of them after 2 weeks. And after 20, you're going to get much, much better.
Yeah. The more you do anything, the better you get.
Yeah.
So
exactly. And that's what Manager Tools is all about. Look, it's about behavior. Management is about behavior. It's not about some brilliant insight you have or, gosh, he looks more like a manager than me. No, management is boring, repetitive. It's not sexy. It's not pretty. It's repeating the same things over and over again. And you're going to get very good at this very fast because it's just about work and your employees.
Okay. Now, next one. In the first one, some of my folks were scared. People were getting scared. Why is that?
Well, let me ask you something, Mike. Does that surprise you? Does that question surprise you?
No.
No.
Particularly if the manager hasn't had a lot of these in the past.
Yeah.
Generally, there's a reason why you're called into the office, and it's not to share.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to have a sharing session. Yeah. The reason your folks are scared is because the only time they ever have private meetings that last half an hour with you is when they're in trouble. Which is a sad commentary. I mean, why can't we bring somebody into the office and sit down and say, listen, I want to tell you all the things you're doing good. man, you would get great results from that person for the next couple of days. And I bet you, if you called one of your directs, if I worked for you, Mike, and you called me into your office and says, you know what, I just like to spend 20 minutes, not 30, just 20. I want to go over some things that I've noticed you doing that I just really want to tell you you're doing great. And it could be as simple as, you know what, you're always on time in the morning. Thank you very much for doing that. And there are some people that aren't. Thank you for being one of the ones that I can count on. Thank you for responding to emails on the weekend if I tell you it's urgent, even though I try to avoid that. I guarantee you at the end of 20 minutes, that person will say something, or at some point in the 20 minutes will say something along the lines of, well, is there something you're about to tell me that's not good? Are you buttering me up? Anything I need to worry about? They're so conditioned to look for negatives from the chain of command that they probably couldn't handle a 20-minute praise session. Your folks are scared because you don't have a good enough relationship with them in most cases. And the way to get around that is one-on-ones. By having regular meetings, they will begin to realize their anxiety will go down. It may take 4, 5, 6, 7 meetings for it to go down, but their first meeting anxiety is not a reason not to do them. You've got to do something to strengthen your relationship with your direct reports.
Okay, let me ask you a question about that.
Okay.
What if you go into a one-on-one and you have bad news? I mean, you want to talk about some performance issue with the individual.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the order in which we want to talk about that. Do I start off for 15 minutes talking about all the good things he did, then whammo, here's the bad thing, or how do you attack that in the context of a one-on-one?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think that most managers would probably feel most comfortable if I told them, look, tell them the good stuff and then tell them the bad stuff. But really, that implies something that's not true, which is your people need to have stuff softened. Your people are hungry for feedback of any type. I'm speaking to virtually every manager in corporate America. Your people are hungry for more feedback from every type. And all I need to do is ask managers, hey, tell me something. Would you like to know more about how you're doing from your boss, what he or she really likes, and what he'd like to improve? And every single time I've got a group of managers in a room somewhere doing some corporate training, they're like, yep, I would like more of that. And then I say to them, do you think your people are that much different? You're that much better of a manager than your boss? And everybody raises their hand and goes, yes, I am. Not really true.
Yeah, 99% of the people out there are better than average.
Yes, exactly. It's like Lake Wobegon, right? All the children are above average. So what happens is your people are hungry for feedback. You can give them feedback in any order you want. If you do feedback regularly, the anxiety that they're going to perceive when you give them some feedback is going to go down to the point where they don't feel like you're talking about them, you're talking about work. And so it's as simple as this. You come in and we've had a rough week and there are a couple of things that went wrong. I say, hey, listen, you know what? We had a rough week, Mike. A couple of things went wrong. Specifically, when you were late with your report to me on Tuesday at noon, let's assume this meeting's on Thursday, and I said, hey, I really needed the next couple hours, and in 2 hours I still didn't have it. Here's what happened. I look bad. You look bad. You had a lot of anxiety. Other work was not getting done. Other people were waiting around for you to get stuff done, so the team was a lot less effective, and we didn't have our report as tight as we needed to going up to the VP. What can you do differently about that? That's it. If you do it that way, that's an example of the feedback model. If you do it that way, it's not about Mike being a bad guy. It's just, hey, look, you did something. Here's what happened. What can we do differently next time? Right. And if I do that 100 times in the course of a couple of months, you're going to realize I'm not attacking you. I just want the work to be done better. On the other hand, I could say, hey, listen, you know what? When you have your work in at 10 o'clock on Tuesday when the deadline is noon, and that gives me time to spend a little extra time preparing for it and so on, here's what happens. It gives me more time. I look good. Our work looks better. Other people are ready to contribute in a way, and it makes you look good to me, and it makes me feel good about our relationship. Thanks. Keep it up.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've also found is that if you're given positive feedback followed by the negative feedback at the end, while you're giving the positive feedback, that's not what they're thinking about. They're thinking about when is the bad stuff going to happen. Right. So they miss the whole impact of the positive feedback, just vanishes. Yeah. So
you know what that is? It's related to something called the the sandwich technique, which a lot of managers use. Well, if I'm going to give my people some bad feedback, first I tell them they're a really good guy and they did this good and this good, and hey, I'd like you to work on this, and then some more positive feedback. It doesn't work. The moment you start using the sandwich technique, they devalue the good comments you're giving them, and they start trying to fight through the weeds to find out where's the bad stuff coming, when's the other shoe going to fall, and they don't hear the good stuff, and you're wasting your breath. If there's something bad something that's negative feedback, trust them, tell them what it is, and they will appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. In another question that somebody had recently, it said that in their first one, their people didn't seem to open up about personal information. They wanted to know what they could do about that.
Yeah. Well, again, they're scared. It wouldn't surprise me. It's not the end of the world. In 2 or 3 or 4 meetings, they'll start sharing more information. And again, I will tell you that for the vast majority of managers in corporate America, the biggest response we get when we teach one-on-ones is, oh my gosh, too much information. I'm just overwhelmed with all stuff. But what you can do about them not being open is the first thing you do is say, look, I want to spend the first one, my 10 minutes or my 15 minutes even, telling you about me. I'm going to share first. I'm going to tell you about my spouse, my kids, my divorce, a little bit about where I live and what's important to me outside of work, a little bit about my background, where I went to school, my career up until now. You lead the way. Show them what's appropriate to share. Don't share your medical history, and probably if you don't share your medical history, it's less likely that they'll share theirs. So yeah, in fact, if you start off saying, tell me about yourself, and you haven't shared first, you're going to get a little bit of awkwardness and not willing to share. So share first. That's something you can do. Now, if you've missed it, you've already done your one-on-one, do it in the next one and apologize. Say, look, you know what? I asked you to share. You didn't feel that comfortable. My bad. Let me spend a minute telling you a little about me and my background. And it'll probably help us in terms of our relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, my folks don't like me taking notes. What do I do?
Take notes. That's an easy one.
Yeah, but they don't like it.
I know. I don't like going to work every day when I've just come back from 2 weeks in the Virgin Islands sailing. I really like I'd like to spend every day of my life in the Virgin Islands, but life is not all a bowl of cherries. I don't like going to 4-hour meetings, and I go, and they're wasted. But let me put it this way: this is not about it's going to be trivially simple to do. It is easy to understand. There are moments that are going to be awkward. The reason they're afraid of you taking notes is the only other time they see people documenting is when they're in trouble. After 4 or 5, they're going to be taking their own notes, and they're going to be thrilled that you're taking notes so you can check up on things and so on. And the fact that it's handwritten as opposed to going into some formal document will make them much more comfortable. I will tell you this: do not do one-on-ones without taking notes.
What if I don't like taking notes?
What's that?
What if I don't like taking notes?
I don't care.
Can I just chat with them?
No. That's like saying, annual reviews. Imagine telling your VP, you know what, I'm just a kind of a soft person. I really don't like documenting things. I'm just going to chat with my people and tell them they did really good and make a couple of suggestions. Not going to do any documentation for the annual review. How do you feel about that? The VP is going to look at you like you have 2 heads.
Yeah.
And he's probably going to look down at his desk, scribble something, and look back up and say, sorry, too bad. It's a case of mind over matter. I don't mind it.
And he just took notes.
Yeah, he did. Boy, this guy's not very smart. I know they don't like it. And you have to fight through that awkwardness that they think you're documenting. And to some degree, it ought to be feedback to you that you're not maybe all that as a manager, because your people's response to you taking notes is just like the way they talk about other managers, which is, oh my gosh, he's documenting. And you're thinking, no, we have a good relationship. Apparently you don't. They're worried about why you're writing stuff down.
Right. Well, part of that fear goes away also when the next one-on-one, you go back and say, hey, last time we talked, I promised you I would do X. Let me give you some feedback on where I'm at on that.
Right. Yeah, I owe you this, and here it is. Yeah. And I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't written it down. Yeah. And you could tell people, look, if I don't write it down, if I do 10 of these, I'm going to forget, and I owe you that level of commitment. And so you need to fight through your people not liking you to take notes. What do? You take notes, period. And you tell them why you're doing it, you're not documenting, and let them deal with it. In a couple of weeks, they'll be over it.
Yeah. Well, following up on that, how do I follow up on old items, things that we talked about in previous one-on-ones?
Well, there are a couple of ways. There's really 3 things. You tell people, hey, I'm going to write it down. I just want to write it down so that way we can check on it next week. Then you actually write it down. what I do is when I prep for the next meeting, we met last Thursday at 2, it's 5 till 2 this Thursday. I'm looking at my notes, and I circle anything on the previous 2 or 3 weeks' notes that I need to cover. Sometimes I write them down on my weekly form this week. Sometimes I don't, and I actually flip back through them when I'm in the meeting, in the one-on-one. But basically what I do is I tell people I'm going to write it down so I can follow up on it. I circle it or write it down on the form for this week, and then I say, hey, I promised you I'd follow up. Where are we on that? The fact is, if I give you something to do on Tuesday, it's due by Tuesday, and you haven't done it, and it's noon on Tuesday, and and I ask you, and you say, I'm sorry, I'm behind on that, and you make a face. And then it's Thursday, and I ask you again, or you ask me again, and I still haven't, done it. Suddenly, you've given me feedback, and the feedback is, it's okay to be late, and all I'm going to do is make a face. People start they start doing calculus about how big a thing will it be before he or she, my boss, decides to really tell me, no, stop what you're doing and do that. So the way you follow up is, hey, you tell them, I'm following up. I wrote it down. I want to follow up. It will greatly improve. What I told somebody recently is it eliminates the cracks that things fall through.
Yeah. Well, okay, so what if I do that? They keep coming back and they keep reporting that they haven't done something. I've got a place to talk to them about. I got the one-on-one to talk to them, but
right.
What do I say?
Right. Well, let's be clear. That's really not a one-on-one question. That's a feedback question. That is a performance issue with one of your direct reports. The great thing is the one-on-one provides a forum to do that. Okay? It's forum for good and bad. It's for the future. It's for what we're working on now. It's for our relationship and so on. So the one-on-one is essentially facilitating one of the core parts of work, which is nobody's perfect and they get behind on things. What you do is you give them some feedback. Hey, when I give you something on Tuesday and it's not done on Tuesday, and then we meet on Thursday and it's still not done even though you told me it'd be done on Thursday, here's what happens. You look bad. I get frustrated. I have to keep following up, and it takes time away from other things. It takes time away from us talking about your vacation or about your training coming up. It makes me less likely to want to send you on vacation or send you on training if, in fact, you're not going to get your work done. It makes the team look bad. It makes our boss look bad. What can we do differently about that? And I can say that. In fact, I often coach people, Mike. And again, we'll have a session on feedback because it's one of my favorite tools.
Yep.
But I often tell people, if you can't start a feedback to one of your reports with saying, hey, I love you, and when you do this, here are the bad things that happen, what can we do differently? If you're intending to make them feel bad, if you're intending to stick it to them, that's not feedback. That's just malfeasance. This is about work. We're just going to tell them, hey, look, you said you'd do it. You didn't do it. Now, if somebody says it 5 times and they don't do it, now I actually am giving them different feedback, Mike, and we won't go into it, but I'll just be very brief and say, now the feedback is when you tell me something is going to be here 5 times in a row, I'm not going to give you feedback anymore about the work. I'm going to give you feedback about how truthful you're being with me and whether I can trust you in the future when you tell me something's going to be done, which is a serious issue for us, and we need to talk about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. How about, I'm doing one-on-ones, but, hey, my people keep coming back to me. How do I reduce the people coming back to me between one-on-ones that are about stuff that's probably best covered in the one-on-one?
Yeah. Well, you don't.
You don't?
You don't.
Me.
You know what?
I mean, I still got to talk to my people?
The one-on-ones are I often call them a bucket. You put that in the one-on-one bucket. I'll talk to them about it on Thursday. And your people will do that too. They will literally stop coming to you as often for stuff because they have the one-on-one bucket they can throw that issue into because it's not urgent. It's not affected by today, or it's not required today. But it's not a place where it is not the end-all and be-all. People are still going to stop you and say, hey, what about this and what about that and so on. It will be reduced to the point where you'll find yourself having a lot more time. As I mentioned in one of the previous podcasts, a very good friend of mine, manager Missy Porter, discovered that she had Tuesdays literally made free because people weren't bugging her because they were waiting for their one-on-ones on Wednesday and Thursday. But here's what you do. You don't do anything unless you've got somebody who repeatedly comes to you with stuff that's minor, that's not related to, it's not time sensitive. In other words, it's neither urgent nor it's important, but they just want to get FaceTime with you. And after you've seen that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times, you can give them some feedback. You can do it in the hallway or you can do it in the one-on-one. You say, hey, listen, I've noticed when you tend to come to me with things like you have this week and you give examples, you ask me about this, 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 All of those things could have waited to the one-on-ones. I worry a little bit. Are you not seeing the value of one-on-ones? Are you telling me that you don't want to do one-on-ones, which is really not a negotiable issue? It's kind of like annual reviews. It's not negotiable. Everybody gets one. If you work for me, you're going to have a one-on-one. Are you telling me you need more time with me? Is there something else going on? Help me understand. What do we need to do differently here? So you don't want to make one-on-ones a place where that's the only time you communicate with your folks. What it will do, though, is it will make the communication you have with them that much better, and it will also give you an opportunity to be more clear with those people who overuse the open door policy. I'm not suggesting it's a way to close your door on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, and I only want to talk to my folks on Thursday. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
Now, what if somebody doesn't show up?
I don't know. Have you ever missed a meeting, Mike?
Well, okay, yeah.
Technically, yes.
Once or
twice. Okay, in your long and storied career.
Yesterday.
So tell me something. What would you want if you didn't go to a meeting? I'm not saying we know the reason yet. What would you want from the meeting supervisor if you, as a reasonably intelligent person, didn't go to the meeting? How would you want to be treated?
Well, I'd want the assumption to be that I missed it for a reason. I just didn't show up.
Right.
Okay. I'd also want the opportunity to cover the information if I could that I missed.
Right. Seems pretty simple. That's what I'd want too. So that's what you do for your folks. It's really simple. What you want is probably what most of your folks want too. So it's simple. You forgive them. The first thing you do is you forgive them. You assume, hey, you know what? Probably he's got something else going on. I'm going to trust him. Now, if he misses 8 or 9 in the course of a couple of months or 3 months, now you've got some feedback. Hey, when you repeatedly miss meetings, here's what happens. I begin to perceive that you're not, you're not professional, that you're being essentially unethical. You're telling me you'll be here and then you're not giving me advance notice. You're being rude. And that's a different thing. But if someone doesn't show, you say, hey, listen, you didn't show. Everything okay? They say, no, I'm sorry, I got busy. Hey, no worries. Let's reschedule. And you just reschedule. And the reason you do that is because you want the same thing from them when your boss says, I know you have a 2 o'clock and I don't care. You're going to stay here until we get this problem ironed out. No, you can't call her to tell her you're going to be late. We're in the conference room, no calls. And you're just like, God, I'm crazy. Okay, fine. And then you come out and you hang your head and you go to the person's desk and you say, I'm terribly sorry. I was in a meeting. I lost track of time. Boss wouldn't let me call. Couldn't text message you. Couldn't BlackBerry you. My fault. Let's reschedule.
So
please accept my apology.
Right. So we just move the stuff we're going to cover today. We just move that to next week's one-on-one.
No,
right?
we do not. Good one. No, we do not. We reschedule this week because they're weekly one-on-ones. That's why I don't recommend you have meetings. You have one-on-ones on Friday, because if you have it on Friday, the temptation is, we didn't get it done this week. We'll just put it to next week. Can you miss one every once in a while, twice a year, 3 times a year? Yes, but I don't recommend it.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of one question is we got a lot of organizations where you have people spread across the entire country or continent or across continents.
Right.
Or I got one of my people's traveling that week.
Right.
Can I do one-on-ones over the phone? And if so, what should I do differently?
Yeah. It's in fact, it's great. One-on-ones over the phone work great. People are thrilled that it is so important to you that you're willing to do it over the phone. And you'll discover that it gives a little different dynamic to the meeting. You'll discover that the agenda is much more important, and you'll really have to husband things along a little bit. But yeah, it's the same exact meeting. You've got your one-on-one notes open. And if one of my directs said to me, Mark, I don't have my one-on-one notes with me, I'd say, that's fine. Just remember next time you're traveling, take it with you so that we can have an effective meeting. And now some people say to me, gosh, when I'm traveling, I'm really swamped for time. Now, this is maybe blasphemy to some people. I don't mind doing it at 7 o'clock on a Thursday evening. Hey, listen, we can't do it Thursday at 2 o'clock because I'm in the middle of a client meeting. Can we do it when you get back to your hotel room? I might go home at 5 o'clock and then say to my family, hey, I've got a half-hour phone call at 7 o'clock at night. But I don't know that many managers who don't do that on a regular basis.
Right.
I'm not going to make it a habit of doing 3 or 4 of my one-on-ones every week in the evenings over the phone. But if I can do it face-to-face, I should. But one-on-ones work just fine over the phone. I found that it's really helpful to say, to start off by saying it's on the phone. Let's both of us take good notes so we're clear. But yes, absolutely, do them. Do them all the time over the phone. Works great.
That's
interesting.
Do
them in the car. I've done them in the car.
So when you travel, do you keep your one-on-one notes with you?
Yeah. I do. I don't take the whole notebook, But if I've got 3, if I know that 3 are scheduled for Wednesday and Thursday, I'll take the last 4 or 5 with me, stuff them in my briefcase. Are they the best one-on-ones I've ever done? No. But what I'm saying is this is a process that's terribly important to us as a team, and I'm not going to miss it.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Hey, those are the key questions that I've heard we've been asked for the last week or so. Anything else to add about
let me just mention one other thing. We got an email from one of our listeners, and I made a big deal in our last session about tech, that you really need to keep one-on-ones low tech. And I've tried. You and I joke about our trios and Blackberries, and we're into podcasting, and we're both interested in gadgets and so on.
Geeks. That's the
we got a great email that said from a fellow that says, I already do regular one-on-ones and can attest to them. I think I have the answer to keeping track electronically. And you knew at some point this was going to be, somebody's going to say this. And what he's doing is using a motion computing tablet PC running XP and Microsoft OneNote software. He says he loves his tablet PC. The handwriting recognition is terrific. And you and I both have a mutual friend, Michael Swinson up at Cornell in IT, who has a tablet PC and has shown me it. And I am blown away by how effective it is at recognizing and being able to search for stuff in the notes. And it's very easy to set up, he says, using templates. And in fact, he's planning on trying ours. And I believe what I did was, rather than having a PDF, I actually sent this guy a Word document so he could work with a Word document rather than a PDF. He uses notes flags, and he says this is probably worth a try for the Geek Manager. And I have to tell you, I like technology, and if I could make my one-on-ones all on my tablet PC, I need to get one, of course, that would save me having to rip the last 4 or 5 weeks out when I travel on the road, and I travel a good bit. He's got wireless hotspots on each floor of his company, so he's able to access the network, although you really shouldn't have to access the network all that much to have effective one-on-ones. I wouldn't want to go back and forth to the computer every 5 minutes in a one-on-one. Oh, you know what, Mike? Can I mention one more thing before we go?
Sure.
One other thing about interruptions. Somebody said, Mark, I'm worried about interruptions. What happens when people come up to my desk and they need to talk to me? I say, well, okay, you ignore them. Well, what do you mean? I said, no, you just hold up a hand or put up a sign saying I'm in a one-on-one. And the first couple of times people will be like, gosh, I really need to talk to you. Well, if you had a door, you'd have closed it because you're in a private session with somebody. But I would do nothing more. If somebody really stood there for 2 minutes, I would say, I'm sorry, I'm in a one-on-one. This is a private conversation. If you'd please excuse us. And they will absolutely turn tail and run. And then you send out a note. Hey, listen, I'm sorry I wasn't clear about it. When I'm on one-on-ones, it should be pretty obvious. You know what my schedule is. I would appreciate respect for that. If the building is burning down, fine. But if I'm in a one-on-one, figure out what you need to do, and then come see me when I'm done. And again, I would turn off the phone, turn off email. Gosh, by the way, turn off that little ringer on your email and so on, and just ignore email and ignore the phone for half an hour.
As hard as that may be, yeah. Good. Well, great. Thanks. I hope this was useful to folks. I think one-on-ones are at their basis are pretty simple, but there's, we throw up a lot of obstacles to being effective with them, and I think just going through some of these questions should help some folks out.
They are pretty simple. If you look at old game films, Mike, of the Green Bay Packers when in the 60s when Vince Lombardi was coaching them, they ran student body right or student body left, the famous pulling guard sweep with Jerry Kramer pulling and so on, over and over and over again, and people couldn't stop it. You know why? That's what they did almost all practices. Lombardi would make them do it until they were perfect. That's kind of like what management is. It's not terribly exciting. It's not Deion Sanders. It's not an 80-yard touchdown pass. But boy, if you can get 4 yards every time you run the ball because you're just better at executing, then boy, you do that. So it's not sexy. It's not pretty. It's not a highlight film, but it sure wins games.
Cool. All right, my friend.
Great.
Well, we'll talk again next week.
Okay. Thanks,
All righty.
buddy.
See you later. Bye. Thanks again for joining us for this edition of Manager Tools, and we hope you found it enjoyable and useful in your career. If you have any questions or comments you'd like to direct to us, you can go to the website at www.manager-tools.com and leave a comment there, or send an email to show@manager-tools.com. We hope to see you again next week. Until then, so long, and hope you have a great week.